Hi, I'm Megan Johnson. This is Young Entrepreneurs, Profit versus Pitfalls. I am so excited. A month ago, I spoke for the American Association of Equine Practitioners. Basically, that's horse veterinarians. And I met my following guest, Sherry Johnson. She was so nice. She spent time with me prior to my presentation, talked to me about her practice, and I was just dumbfounded. She is a millennial. She is also a woman in a male-dominated industry. She's a practice owner. She owns her own practice, she and her partner. Her resume truly reads like some kind of overachiever handbook. And we were just chatting. Not only does she own her own practice, not only she's about to celebrate her wedding anniversary, but she's also getting her PhD. So Sherry, it's so great to see you virtually, but it is so fun to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Megan. I've been excited about this podcast for like weeks now. So,
oh, well,
thank you.
We did have a little technical difficulty about a week ago. Sherry was ready to go, but sadly our technology wasn't. But thank you for coming back. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Tell me a little bit about the journey that you went from being a veterinarian, entering this male-dominated world. And I realize that there are more women vets than before, but really the vet being a veterinarian is very male dominated. You become a veterinarian and you and your partners own your own practice. Can you walk us through that journey?
Yeah, I love, telling people about my journey and how I arrived at my passion for veterinary medicine. And I do think it's noteworthy just to say that, I am an equine sports medicine and rehab specialist. So that's pretty much my only area of focus. So I don't work on dogs, cats, anything else except horses. And even more specialized within the equine field, I work on orthopedic injuries. So orthopedic rehab, sports medicine type of cases. So I'm a bit skewed in terms of, I'm not necessarily representative of the average veterinarian out there. And the veterinary field at this point in time is about 70–80% female, women coming through veterinary school, but it wasn't always like that. And I've been a veterinarian for 10 years now, and I would say when I went to veterinary school 10 years ago, that, there was definitely more women in the student body, but historically the field of veterinary medicine has always been very male dominated. And specifically equine sports medicine has been, that specific field has been very male dominated as well. And when I first started my residency, so I did my veterinary school at Iowa State University, graduated in 2012, did an internship, finished my residency at Colorado State University, and then got board certified. And I was actually trained predominantly by men, but I also had some really amazing women in my court as well that mentored me through that process. And I think the major important thing to note was that, the men and the women that I worked with, they always supported me in every way possible. And, I really wasn't raised that women should or could be doing anything necessarily differently than men. Like I was raised like, if you want something, go after it and get it and work hard for it. And my mentors definitely resonated with that mantra as well. And so when I started my residency, it was a collaborative residency through Colorado State University and what was then the private practice Equine Sports Medicine LLC, which my partners and I now own. So I did my training through them, got done with my residency, and then ended up buying into the practice. And my partner, Dr. Josh and Cameron Donnell, we actually bought out all of the partners there. So, but the two partners of the practice at the time through my residency training, they will giggle if they listen to this. They're old white guys, and I was the first, more permanent female veterinarian of the practice, or on the trailer, as we say. So we have a mobile unit. It's a modified NASCAR trailer that travels the quarter horse circuit. And I was the first female veterinarian, to be a bit more of a permanent fixture on that trailer. And so that was super exciting.
That sounds amazing. What motivated you and your partners to buy out to use your language, the old white guys? What motivated you? What motivated you to decide to buy them out?
Well, I think it's all timing. And I think as you're a young professional, those subtle things that happen along your journey or along the way. I really do think that the timing is everything, and being open to what those opportunities are at the time that they present themselves. So I got done with my residency. Josh was already board certified, already, working horse shows and working for the practice. And it was fairly casual, but he kind of approached me and said, "Hey, do you want to buy this? Like, I think we could grow this. I think we could make it successful and, kind of give it a facelift." Not that it was that needed a facelift, but there was definitely a changing of the guards feel to things. And Josh and I are both very different in our styles of practice, how we approach cases. Our staff kind of giggles because they say, "Well, you two end up medically a lot of times at the same place for certain cases, but you go about it very differently." And I actually think that difference in the two of us has what's helped generate a lot of the success that we have had. And Josh's wife, Dr. Cameron Stout, Cameron Donnell, she brings a different perspective even to the practice than Josh and I. And so we have, the three partner veterinarians that are all very good, but at different things. And we tend to gravitate towards certain clientele and certain cases. And I ultimately think that's one of the strengths of our practice is, if you don't resonate with my style, most likely you're going to resonate with Cameron's style or Josh's style. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a real benefit of business. But it was fairly casual. I got done with my residency, kind of looked around like, well, what's the next step? And it was at the time that I had also transitioned into a PhD at Colorado State University, focusing specifically on orthopedic rehabilitation strategies. And people might think that sounds crazy. And most days I also think that that's crazy. But the reality is that those two jobs, they actually go quite hand in hand. One does fuel the other in terms of, the clinical inspiration of working on the horses and kind of in the trenches in Texas and at the horse shows. That's what has completely inspired my PhD research. So the two go very much hand in hand. So it's fun to be a hybrid, kind of the academic world and the private practice world.
I would say my experience in researching how younger people approach work and approach problem solving, that what you're saying is, I think, a wonderful attribute of many young people is that they say, I don't have to be just pigeonholed into this one area, that I can take things from different areas and combine them. And it's not just one path to get, from point A to point B, but there's a variety of paths.
Yeah. And I think if I had any advice, for young, especially females out there, up against something difficult, right? Like you're going to find people that are going to give you a million reasons why an idea is bad, why it won't work, how it's going to fail. And you just have to keep going. You just have to push through. And the reality is that my job, my position right now of managing a high volume, privately owned, board certified, owned and operated rehab center, that job didn't exist 5 years ago. That wasn't a job title that anyone in the veterinary industry had, but that's what I wanted to do. And I set my mind to it that's what I was going to do. Like most of the time I wanted to just be overseeing really difficult rehab cases to make a difference and push the needle forward in terms of rehab strategies. Like it's not just about resting and icing things anymore. Like let's do something different, think outside of the box. And so it wasn't an easy path by any means. It was super difficult, and every single day sometimes continues to be difficult. I'm up against a hard case or, another rejection from a grant submission or whatever. But you just got to keep going and have that support system around you that is going to help inspire you along the way.
Well, so now I was not aware that, so the position or the title that you hold now, it didn't exist 5 years ago, is what I heard you say.
Yeah, and what I mean by that, Megan, is that for a veterinarian to spend the bulk of their time professionally focused on rehab itself is not a common position to have. Usually if a veterinarian is affiliated with a rehab center or kind of has a rehab center, they're also seeing cases and not, specifically dedicated, focused on the rehab care of those horses. So my goal was to become the highest evolution of the species. I wanted to be not only board certified, but residency trained in rehab. And I got that training at Colorado State University. It was fabulous. And the Orthopedic Research Center there, now kind of morphed into the Translational Medical Institute. That's really the grand poobah of where this orthopedic training originated. So I sought out, the very best program in the whole world, the collaborative residency that I completed. I wanted it to be the highest volume on specific Western performance horses. And then I've taken that training, one step further and morphed it into what is now our business and our practice, and really have just focused on rehabbing the equine athlete.
And so, and you mentioned your partner. Your partner is a married couple?
Yes.
Okay, and I didn't realize.
There's 3 of us total.
Well, that has to be an interesting dynamic. So it's you and the other 2 veterinarians are married. How does that play out?
Yeah, so that's actually a great question. So Cameron and I, we like to call ourselves, Josh's sister wives, and everyone always thinks that I'm probably going to be on the island, and then Josh and Cameron, ganged up against me. But the reality is, it's usually Cameron and I against Josh. So I'm not sure that was the smartest business move that he ever made, was getting into business with his wife and myself. But here we are. But I'm saying all of this, I adore my partners. We have a great working dynamic. Like I said, we go at things differently. We work together. We support each other. There's so many times where I have to run things by Cameron or Josh, like cases that are weird. We're always collaborating. We're always talking. And it's really, truly a great dynamic. And I think, any young veterinarians listening to this is find your people, find your village, find the people that maybe they think you're crazy and your ideas are crazy, but they're willing to go that direction as well with you. And that's probably the neatest thing I could say about Josh is he's truly a visionary, and he's a dreamer. And so I have these ideas, and Cameron has ideas as well. I consider my ideas to be scary and big and somewhat impossible, right? To get to where we are now. If you would have told me, 3 or 4 years ago that this is where we were going to be at, I would have never believed you. But Josh, for whatever reason, and Cameron too, they've believed in me, they've believed in us, and they've believed in our common vision, and they've just helped make it happen. And so I think, as you're going through things, the people that tell you no and shoot down your idea, give you the million reasons why it's not going to work, those are probably not your people. You don't need a yes man, but you need people who are going to really help you pull the wagon in the same direction and all be on the same team together. And our staff is amazing. We have the best staff in the entire world. We certainly couldn't have done any of this, or do any of this day to day without their help and support. I always tell people, they're really the ones that know what's going on around here. So,
did you find that when the transition happened from the previous owners to you and Josh and Cameron, did I say their names right, Josh and Cameron? When that transition happened, did most of the staff stay on, or did you have to do a little cleaning house there?
There was a little cleaning house, and I think as we look over the last few years about staff members that weren't necessarily a fit for our practice, those differences usually become pretty apparent, pretty quickly. And I think I have, as I've grown and gotten more experience, I've become more comfortable with just accepting that this might not be a fit for the staff member, for our practice, for whatever the reason may be. And the reality is if you have people that are happy and love doing what they're doing, and they love doing it with you, like a supportive, positive type of environment, they're going to do such a better job. So our goal is to, no need is left unmet for our horses. They get every single thing, every single detail of their program has to be on point for the best outcome possible. The reality is it's not me doing that every single day. It's our staff. So that support network has been just integral to helping us grow. And it's interesting, because we want to change things, we want to do things differently. And I think, change can be met with some pushback and some resistance. But I would say in general, our staff has been, fully supportive of that. And a lot of times they come up with ideas that I hadn't thought of and ways we should go about things in terms of efficiency and all of that. So it's been a real learning experience, managing people. Josh does much more of the business end of things than I do, but we still kind of each have our own core group of people that we work with and manage. So it's been a ride.
No pun intended.
Yes. Yeah.
And I kind of want to jump back on the staff because, as you know, I speak to different groups about generations, and kind of a common complaint people have is that it's hard to find staff, especially younger people, but it's hard to find staff that will engage in what could be considered like hard work, or maybe I don't like to use the word dirty, but I mean, if you're working with horses, you're not sitting in an office, a pristine office. You're gonna have some interaction, right?
Right.
And so, how do you find the right people to work in what I consider a non-traditional environment like that?
Yeah, it's a struggle. I mean, and I'm going to be honest, it's not like everything is rainbows and butterflies in terms of hiring staff and retaining that staff. But I think the leadership roles that we've really worked on, within ourselves, like me, Josh, and Cameron, the leadership skills to help motivate and to help inspire our staff members to really do the best job possible has been the best thing. And I think some things that I've found along the way, like it's never a reason to have a staff member do something a certain way, and I said so kind of thing, because I said so, is never a good enough reason. You have to be able to back it up with, here's the reasons why I want you to do this, this, and this in this specific way or this specific order. So I think that is really important, is getting them to, fully engage and understand in the why we're doing what we're doing. And then I think once they get behind that message and that overall theory on thing, it becomes a lot easier to get passionate about the work. And the second thing is there's, we're never above any job. I might be in the barn sweeping the floor, at 6 p.m. just with my staff, or working with the naughty horses, or doing the jobs that no one else wants to do. Uh-huh. So I think that's a really important thing, is to stay in tune with your staff and just let them know that you are there for them as well. And specifically my rehab staff members, like we have little check-in meetings, like how are things going? And it's a one-on-one confidential conversation that happens of like, are you happy? If you're not happy, why is that? How can I help you succeed in this role? Where do you want to be? What are your goals? And so I really do try to take the time. Each individual staff member is really important. And the good ones, like we try to take care of them, really, really well, and keep them happy and doing what they're great at, which is helping manage our horses and working with our horses. So I think that's been, if you don't have good staff and the people on the ground working with whatever your product may be, like my product is rehabbing horses, but whatever your product is, like if you don't have people there that care and are really wanting to do a good job, the whole thing's going to be a struggle. And I know that from experience of having gone through iterations of staff members that didn't work out. So cut bait earlier rather than later, I guess is my
cut bait advice. Earlier, is that what you said?
Yeah, if something's not working out, like if it's not a fit, don't beat yourself up and move on. But your core village of people that are there, take really good care of them, because they're helping create your final product, and they're so important to your business. Yeah.
I like what you said about cut bait earlier, because I have had several people work in my office, and they're not, I realized early on they're not a good fit, but I keep trying to make it so it's a good fit for them. Do this, do that, and so when I finally just say, this isn't working, we need to go our separate ways, it's this huge relief. And I think to myself, if I'd only done this a couple months ago, I would have saved myself so much time.
Absolutely. And I think, the people that are really your core village that are doing the great job and really putting everything they have into your dream and what you're doing, when they do come to you with a problem or a suggestion, my experience has been is that it's usually really thought out and very logical and backed by reasons, of like, this isn't working, we need to do XYZ. So I think, but if you have that experience of it's not going well and it's not a good fit initially, it is really hard to put a round peg in a square hole situation. So you've got to be able to identify who are those key stakeholders. I need to listen to this feedback, or this feedback isn't helpful. That's never going to change. That's not possible, sort of situation. So.
And I want to talk a little bit more about when you and Josh and Cameron did take the business over. Did you have any pushback from the clients?
That continues to be interesting experiences. Horse people are real funny. Their horses are their babies, and whoever is going to be taking care of their horse and as part of their program, that's a really delicate thing. And it's not just a fly-by decision, right? Of like, this is a casual, oh, now you're my vet. When, Alan Donnell and Dave Frisbee had started this practice, they were the foundational partners that built it to what it was, so that Josh and I could then take it and be successful, right? But they had in turn built this clientele that loved them and cherished them. And they were like, friends and family. And so it was a lot easier for, I think, Josh to break into that culture, because he had been around, he's actually Alan's nephew. So he had been around these people almost his entire life. So they knew Josh was familiar, but I was the new kid on the block, and I hadn't necessarily grown up in this circle. I'd grown up with horses and riding horses, but I hadn't grown up with the super fancy Western performance horses that, I was now being expected to work on. And there was a really big struggle for me, especially initially, because I was a woman, and the veterinarians had always been male and the technicians had always been young female. And, I'm just turned 37 years old, and I get told all the time that I look young, and I say, well, thank you. My moisturizer is doing its job then. But that was a real struggle for me, was to establish myself as just even a veterinarian. They didn't understand that I was the veterinarian, or how was I able to communicate that message other than just having the conversations with them and, letting my work speak for itself. And slowly over time, Alan and Dave were very supportive, and they helped promote Josh and I to the client, right? Of like, these guys are going to take excellent care of you. You couldn't be in better hands. And I was trained by them. I was therefore product or an extension of them, which they also took a lot of pride in. So I think that having that healthy relationship there is really important. Like I talked to some veterinarians where the mentorship piece, it doesn't necessarily flow, and they're not necessarily portrayed as being an equal or coming in and taking over the reins. Like it's kind of awkward or it's weird, but it never was for Josh or I. I mean, Dave and Alan were always really supportive of that transition. But I do giggle because, women were and continue to be some of the more difficult clients to convince them that I'm competent, even though I might look young and even though I'm a woman and I'm different than Dave or Alan, which I think is it's always an interesting dynamic. Like within the past month, I had an older woman come up to me at a horse show, a trainer, and she said, do the guys really let you work these horse shows by yourselves? Like, because it was me and another female veterinarian, one of our residents, and then a female technician. And I just I looked at her and I don't know that my response is necessarily like PC for this podcast, but that's an example. Women can be the most difficult for me to work with sometimes. And everyone would always think I deal with the crying cowboys. That's not a problem. That's fine. It's, a lot of times it's the women that are the tougher sell. And, there's certainly been plenty of them along the way that have mentored me. And, I'm not the first woman ever to experience pushback of being a woman. Females have been fighting that for decades, right? but I think it's just all in how you handle it. And at the end of the day, if you are consistent and you deliver results and you care, I think is the biggest thing, then you will build that culture that is like you. So whatever your business is, like, you're going to gravitate towards like-minded people. And I have some of the very best clients in the world. Cameron thinks her clients are the actual best. I think mine are the best, and Josh thinks that his are the best. So, you know, each personality style is different, and how you interact with your clients, but it really does become a very personal relationship.
And do the clients come to you, or do you spend more of your time going out to people's to people's barns, or do they come to you?
So I'm fairly unique in the fact that really the only times that I'm out seeing cases is when our mobile unit goes to horse shows. So our practice serves as the official AQHA World Show veterinarian. So we're the official, veterinarian at all of those horse shows, the Youth World, the Select World, and then the Open World Championships. And then we go to several other horse shows, throughout the season as well. But we have this modified NASCAR trailer. It's a souped up, basically a mobile vet clinic for horses that Alan and Dave built back in the day, and it's beautiful. And we travel around the country and we support, the AQHA horse shows. We're kind of like the carnies, but for veterinarians a little bit. So I spend, some of my time is spent doing that. We do fund a residency program through Colorado State University. So we have 2 residents that spend time with Josh and myself directly, getting trained in these sports medicine cases. And it's a really interesting caseload. It's super high volume. It's super high pressure because these horses are all very expensive. They're all at horse shows. They're looking to compete, or a big competition is on the line. Or it's, people hauling their horses into the horse show for us to look at them, because pretty much all we do is sports medicine. We're not really spending a lot of time like vaccinating or doing teeth. Like, we're very, very specialized. So I'll see cases out on the road. And then we have our home rehab center that's in Whitesboro, Texas. And, we have usually between 40 and 50 horses at that rehab center that I manage the care with my staff from the ground all the way up. So when I'm not at horse shows, I'm typically hiding with my rehab horses and working on them exclusively. So Josh and Cameron do see cases out of the home clinic that's in Pilot Point. It's about 30 minutes away. The clinic is high volume as well. But I'm pretty much the one that's, looking at the rehab horses and managing their care. So it's a pretty fun dynamic.
And when you say high volume, what does that translate into?
So in the year of 2021, our practice looked at 22,000 horses.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. Meaning we're busy all the time. We've got horses coming and going. And that's a really big deal to us. I mean, being able to affect a horse's recovery is huge. And people listening to this who are not horse people might just think, well, horses are a luxury item. Not necessarily. A lot of times these horses are, I have several clients that have physical disabilities or physical limitations themselves. And their horse is integral to them maintaining strength, or is actually a part of their PT program at home. So they have a tie, they have a connection, they have a need for that horse. And if that specific horse is injured or not able to help on their journey to recovery, then they actually suffer as well. So it's a variety of levels. It's a lot of different cases that we see. Every single one of these horses is different. They're different in terms of their behavior, their personality, who they prefer to work with, and really diving into those nuances to manage them like to the best level possible is like my favorite thing about my job. But getting those cases in the door, right, that people want to give up on, and they say, well, nothing else is going to work and nothing has worked and this is doom and gloom. And we come in and we try to rebuild the machine as much as possible. And I don't always win, but I do win a lot. And I like to try to, under promise and over deliver. That's my mantra. I can't assure you that your horse will have a good outcome, but I can promise you that I will do everything in my power to make sure it has the best outcome possible. So I get just really, really passionate about talking about these horses. They mean the world to me when they're there. I treat them as if they were my own horse. And people ask me, well, do you have your own horses? I'm like, no, I have like 40 to 60 horses that I'm managing at all times, trying to, keep everything happy and healthy. But it's fun. I mean, I'm literally living my dream. I couldn't ask for a better job in life. It's really, I don't view it as my job. It's what I love. And I decided that this was going to be, my gift to the world was to help horses. And on the PhD research side of things, this research that we're doing is directly, applicable to what human physical therapists are doing. So then that's a whole other aspect as well, that indirectly my research on horses, I think it will end up helping a tremendous amount of humans as well. So that's also really important.
It's incredible. I think the horse human bond is amazing. And I know that we spoke before, and I used to ride horses when I was a kid, and it's one of those things horses are truly, they're just incredible creatures. And as you said, much like humans, they have personalities of people they want to deal with, people they don't want to deal with. But I have to ask, when you said earlier about naughty horses, you deal with the naughty horses. How does a horse get into the naughty category?
Oh, a variety of ways. So, naughty horses can be naughty for a variety of reasons. But it's mostly, just coming from the behavioral aspect. You have to remember that we're dealing with injured horses, so they're in pain. Mm-hmm. They're usually pissed off at the world for a variety of reasons because of this pain. And most of them are on restricted exercise, so they don't have an outlet that's safe for them, to blow off steam like other normal horses do. So they may have developed certain vices. They may have developed certain aversions to touching certain areas or doing certain things, or just in general, horses are unpredictable. So they can also just rip their bandages off or rip up their blanket, just be naughty, or just kind of throw me a curveball in terms of you're this far out from surgery, you should be this sound, but you're not, you're mm-hmm. still limping. Those non-responders are difficult to predict. And I sit and I spend hours thinking about each one of these cases and contemplating, what I need to do to get their best recovery. I do consults all the time. I have an arsenal of equine radiologists that I use. Dr. Myra Barrett, my shout out, she's my equine radiologist exclusively that reads all of my studies for me, and is in large part one of my mentors, and has been just a tremendous role model through my path. So I consult with her all the time. I have several surgeons that I work with as well, that always bouncing ideas off of and trying to think about things differently. And the folks at Owens Recovery Science and also Delphi Medical Innovations have been key to helping with my blood flow restriction passion and my PhD work there, in terms of bringing that to the equine athlete.
Oh, and I love that phrase. You said it to me earlier when we spoke a couple months ago. The equine athlete. I absolutely love that phrase.
Yeah. Well, they are the Michael Jordans of the horse world.
It's amazing.
You gotta take care of them.
When I was young and I first got my first horse, this grizzled old stable guy said to me, "You're not a true horse person until you've been kicked, bit, and thrown." And I remember my 10-year-old self thought, "Oh no, that's not going to happen to me." I think it all happened to me within the first 14 days. So
yeah, I tell people they're dangerous at each end and dicey in between. So
very true.
Life choices, they're not super into making good life choices sometimes. This is why we can't have nice things. Not every day is a 10 in rehab. I tell people that you got to stay the course and don't get focused on the dips or the peaks, because that's probably about to change. Yeah. But the horsemanship piece of what we do is so important, understanding these horses and figuring out how to best work with them and what makes them happy and center their chi. That's half the battle. Yeah. Is just the horsemanship piece. And that's where, my staff is amazing. I have amazing horsemen that work with me. in these horses. And a lot of times if we're struggling on one certain thing, between all of us in the barn, we can usually come up with a good game plan to manage those guys. But I was so honored to work with this year's AQHA Super Horse, the 2021 Super Horse. She's one of my favorite horses of all time. Snap It, Send It. I've got to give her a shout out. She is just one of my, personal favorite athletes of all time.
And what's the horse's name again?
Snap It, Send It.
Snap It, Send It.
Yep. Oh, yep. So she's owned by Kent Ray Taylor and trained by Blake Wise out of KRT Show Horses. And you want to talk about equine athlete, she is the definition of it. Oh, so interestingly enough, the mare that horse is out of is she herself was also a super horse, and she is the first horse in history to go on to produce another super horse.
Oh, so really?
That's also very
And
cool.
What's Snap It, Send It? What's her mother's name?
Snap, Crackle, Pop.
I see a theme here.
Yes, they're amazing athletes.
Well, Sherry, I had a whole list of things I wanted to talk to you about, but this has just been great. We didn't even touch the list because everything you had to say was just, I wanted to hear more of what you had to say. Thank you so much for joining me today. If people wanted to find you on social media or get in touch, how would they do that?
Yeah, we are on Facebook and Instagram. Our Instagram is at Equine Sports Medicine, ESM. So it's all spelled out. And yes, there's 2 E's in a row. And it's the picture of the big blue truck. We also have a website, www.eqsmr.com. And you can reach us directly by emailing rehab@equine-sportsmedicine.com.
Oh, perfect. And then again, I've been on your website. I've seen some of the images. They are really, even if you're not a horse person, you should go look at these images. They're just the pictures of the animals you have, and the work you're doing is truly, it's incredible. And as a horse person, I want to thank you for everything you're doing, and and your partners.
Thank you for having me. This has been a tremendous honor, Megan. And thank you for speaking at our convention this year. That was a highlight. And for those of you listening, Megan totally called me out and showed a picture of me, and I was there. I was backstage, but she asked me to stand up in the audience, and then awkwardly I wasn't there. Yeah. But I was backstage. I was there. I was prepping.
Yeah, I was looking out there. I'm like, "Where's Sherry? Where's Sherry?" I'm like, "Oh, see, she ditched me."
Yeah, thank you so much. We loved having you. It was a great talk.
Well, thank you again. It was my honor to speak for the association, and when I got to interview you and several of your other peers, it was just, it made it a wonderful experience. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. So we just finished talking to Sherry Johnson with Equine Sports Medicine and Rehabilitation. She takes care of those big, beautiful animals, horses that really have, we've had a bond with horses for many, 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 many years. Please check her out, and I look forward to seeing everybody very soon when we talk to more young entrepreneurs about their profits and pitfalls.